also got our attention too, which led to a conversation about Brandin Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga, because largely for the last week and a half, at any point, once the Paul George thing was not going to happen, then Lauri Markkanen became a name, and many reports have stated that that is now the Warriors' target with regard to a home run trade, if it's even available. And I think that there was just assumptions immediately made, and I get it. I made them too, where people went, okay, the Jazz are going to want a ton of picks, and I'm sure they're going to want Jonathan Kuminga, the Warriors' top young asset. And then as we're just bebopping along through our week, here comes Tim McMahon, very dialed-in NBA reporter, long time, on a podcast with Zach Lowe. Say the same thing about Zach, very dialed-in, long-time NBA reporter. And McMahon says this about what would be asked of the Warriors should the two get together on a deal.
Educated speculation, I think Podziemski would have to be in the deal. Obviously, you're talking about a ton of picks. I don't know how much the Jazz would press on Kuminga. I do think, like, if Podziemski's not in the deal, there wouldn't be a deal.
Okay, so he uses the word speculation, but I actually want to focus on the other word that he used at the beginning. Educated speculation. That tells me that he's not just saying that. That's based on conversations that he's had or things that he knows about the landscape of the league. And I'm largely with you. Like, I do want to ask the question of, boy, why would the Jazz want Pods and not Kuminga? And I think that there's probably an equal amount of capital on both sides of this. One, it's financial. Kuminga's about to need an extension that's going to be very expensive. Pods will be pretty cheap for a little while. But I think there's probably something to be said for strategy here, too, that while Kuminga's got the pizzazz and the pop and the wow, Podziemski walked into the NBA and was immediately polished and made the all-rookie team. So which one would you be more comfortable giving up, Warrior fans? And that's kind of what we've been chatting about here.
It's a good recap. Solid, strong recap.
Thank you.
I'm over here analyzing your recap. It was really good. I don't know the Jazz well enough to know what they need.
Well, of course, I mean, who the hell does?
So yeah. I would love to be a Utah Jazz aficionado and tell you, well, because of X, Y, and Z, they need a point guard. They need a scrappy guy. I don't know what they need. When you trade for what you need, you draft the best player available when you get your chance in a draft. Whatever the best guy on the board is, you take it and you figure it out. When you're trading for somebody in the offseason or in the season, it's what you need, because you're trading for a player that fits your style, fits what you need.
Okay, but
so you don't just like willy-nilly trade for a guy that you don't need.
No, but what? Okay,
so the Jazz obviously need a guy like Podziemski over a guy like Kuminga. But I think it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean one guy's better than the other.
No, but you're looking at teams as if they're all doing the same thing, and in the NBA they're not. The Jazz are not interested or even trying to win a championship this year. So when you say what they need, it's not just like, oh, they need a guard, not a wing. Like, I think it's more about the asset. And so I think that this is my guess, uneducated speculation. My guess would be the Jazz are looking at this and going, A, he is cheaper,
controllable,
and B, he is more of a sure thing. He may have a lower ceiling, but I am more confident that Podziemski is a definite NBA productive toward winning player than I am about Jonathan Kuminga, who, let's be real, pizzazz all you want, there are still questions as to whether or not that development will get to a refined space.
No, I disagree, man.
Okay, and that's fine. That's fine.
There's no way that anybody thinks that Kuminga has a way higher ceiling.
I just said that.
Than Podziemski.
I just said that. But Podziemski is.
But you made it sound like that Kuminga is already reached his potential.
No, I'm saying Podziemski is. I could see NBA evaluators looking at him and going, if I'm projecting forward, there are more questions still about whether or not Kuminga is going to become a true, like, we can do this every night and you affect winning. You have a higher ceiling than Pods.
But there's so many questions about Podziemski too right now. Like, who knows what he's going to be?
What questions? What questions do you have? Again, the ceiling is not as high, but like the floor is higher too. I think. Like, all rookie team walks in first year and plays like in a very well-rounded sort of a way.
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding the words to describe Podziemski versus Kuminga because I don't want to seem like I hate Brandin because I think he's great. Or I dislike him as a player, but I think he's great.
Do what I've done. I now have a vendetta against Jonathan Kuminga.
I just saw Kuminga improve in the upside for him and the way he played all year.
Sure.
And I've watched the NBA for a long time as a fan. I don't know that I've ever seen a guy improve so much in the course of a season because it's hard to improve during the year, but he got opportunity, took advantage of opportunity, and I watched him grow up right in front of our eyes.
Sure.
I saw Brandin Podziemski do the same thing where they had a need. They played him, but then I saw inconsistent play at times where some nights he was turning the ball over, some nights he wasn't making his shot. He always gave you effort every night. That was one thing you could count on. He always gave you this uncanny knack for rebounding the basketball, which is not what you really think about from a small guy.
That's true.
He always played hard and dove for balls, but like the scrappy basketball player that he is, in the talent that Jonathan Kuminga is, I can't sit here and say that like Kuminga's upside is so much higher and he's reaching his potential. And I'm half joking, half serious about All-Star next year. But I like the talent of a Jonathan Kuminga versus the effort and the attitude of Podziemski. I think you keep them both.
Okay. And that's fair. Look, I don't think you're saying anything unfair. I just think also when we get to these conversations, this becomes, when you're talking about businesses trading high-level, multi-million-dollar assets, investments. I hate calling them that. They're people.
Yeah, I know.
But like that's what these teams are doing. And so when you get to that point, there is such a deeper knowledge of what you're doing. You've done all the homework. You've done the background checks. You've talked to everybody to know what's going on. It was Ramona Shelburne who came on our show at one point last year and was maybe the first one to sort of say this out loud on the radio. And I don't have the quote in my head, so I will just paraphrase what she's saying. The Warriors have had problems at times through the last 3 years getting Kuminga on the page. Do you understand what's going on out here? What we're trying to do, how to run the offense, how to do this, how to do that, how to rebound, where you're supposed to be, defensive rotations, that kind of thing, right? Like that. And he's been doing this all along right next to Draymond Green, who's maybe like the best guy in the league at understanding all of those things. They've had a hard time at times. And I think it is one of the things that made Steve hesitate early in Jonathan's career when the Warriors are in the midst of trying to win a championship and people wanted to see Kuminga because he popped and he was exciting. But Steve's like, but we can't take the mistakes. We can't do it. There's too much on the line right now. And Jonathan makes mistakes because he's not getting it the way we want him to get it. I think the reason Steve turned so much over to Brandin right away is not because Brandin came in and he was amazing at anything physically. But what he was he was really good. He was a little bit good at everything. He was a little bit good at everything and he got it. He understood everything right away. And the Jazz know that. That's all I'm saying.
What was the controversial quote from Kuminga? Like, I look over my shoulder. I never know when the buzzer sounds if I'm being taken out of the game.
The quote was from, like, Shams reported that Jonathan no longer believed that Steve Kerr was the right person to handle his future.
He said he had lost faith.
Lost faith.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And then they hashed it out, and his game took off from there.
And he
applied himself.
So did his minutes.
His minutes took off. His game took off. And we had Steve on this show when I was filling in talk about how he's applied himself and he's learning what angles to cut on.
Yes.
All of that got better. So all those points you're making, he's taken it upon himself to be better at all of it.
No doubt.
He has this drive and desire to become a really good player and a great player, I think.
I agree with all that. I agree with all that. But it took 3 years.
So what? He's like 21 years old.
So's Pods.
He should have been in high school for God's sake.
Pods is also 21. Took him a month. That's all. I'm just telling you what the NBA knows this.
Okay.
You know, like and to a degree, all of us are sitting here projecting. You know, so if one of the like I do in the end of this sort of like this quick portion of our conversation, that's kind of what I would look at Pods as a lower ceiling but higher floor, like a more sure thing to be a rotational player that affects winning, much lower ceiling, and cheaper. And I bet that with where Utah is in their arc, that's probably attractive to them.
And maybe they need a point guard or a guard more than they need a wing guy.
Maybe.
I don't know. I would love to know.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were talking about this today or I'd done my Utah Jazz homework.
We weren't going to until Tim McMahon said this.
90% of the people in their car right now give 0 Fs about the Utah Jazz.
Oh, I disagree with that completely. Because,
really?
They have Lauri Markkanen. Like the Utah Jazz are the most important NBA team not named the Warriors to the Warrior fans right now. What Danny Ainge is going to do with this guy is literally question one. Are you trading him? If you are, this is incredibly relevant to Warrior fans right now.
All right.
I think, and I mean, I trust what Tim's saying on this. KC in San Jose with Willard and FP. Hi, KC. What's up?
Hey, guys. Hey, first of all, FP, I met you with my son a couple of weeks ago at a Giants corporate event. Thanks for spending the time with us and giving my son some tips. At 11, I'm sure he's going to remember it for the rest of his life, having taken ground balls with a Major League Baseball player. So thank you for that.
Awesome. You're welcome. I had a good time with you guys.
And thank you. And then, what you guys are talking about, I mean, Mark, you've covered it and FP has hit on it, right? Yes, unfortunately, I do care about the freaking Jazz because they do have the one guy that's available somewhat in the market. So, look, right now, they just need bodies and players and assets. That's what it doesn't matter. So, Mark, I agree with your point, right? Like, Pods, obviously, talent-wise, just if you see those two side by side, wouldn't be the guy you pick. But he's making, he's on a rookie contract. Jazz timeline, if you go by what Ainge usually does, is at least 3-4 years away. So they probably, even if their own internal evaluation says that Kuminga is a better option, they don't want to give him $40 million next year, right? Because they don't want to take, 30% of their cap. So if I genuinely think if that is the case, if this report is an educated guess, if Podziemski can get us Lauri and can get Steph, that helps, and so he can play along with Dre, where the floor can spread out and a big that can shoot. I love you, Podziemski, but I'm driving you to the airport.
Casey, thank you. Appreciate it. Good call. I mean, this is what started the whole conversation yesterday, was that I would not only drive, I'm not driving Kuminga to the airport, I would drive him to Utah and then bring Lauri back. I would. And I know how that sounds. Oh, here we go, Vendetta, and you did, like either of these players. Like I would be in the camp, I would be willing to give up either one of them if it meant getting Lauri Markkanen.
Either one of them?
Yeah. Yeah. I like both players a lot, but I don't understand how people can still say they value the remainder of Steph Curry's career, but then be all in on Kuminga and Pods and Moody and TJD. It doesn't match. So good players. I like them. I don't think there's some sort of a championship core. waiting in the wings behind Steph. If you still want to do something with Steph, then yeah, you're probably going to have to use some of those assets to get someone who's ready to go score 26 a night right now in the NBA.
Yeah, he's a plug-and-play star. I get that. And I love his game, but maybe I'm just stuck on Kuminga, man. I just love a guy that finds himself. He's young. His upside's crazy. We watch him improve. We watch him get better in all assets of the game. I don't know. That's a guy I would not trade.
You're not alone.
I would not trade him. He would be untouchable.
The Warriors do not want to trade him, but untouchable is an interesting word. Steve said to us yesterday,
he's touchable?
Steph Curry.
Is he the only one?
And that's it.
Yeah.
He said very few guys in the NBA at all. Is this still up here, actually? Yeah, here we go. This is Steve Kerr when, in fact, and it was Kuminga that he was asked about. Like Jonathan Kuminga and trade rumors. This is the way Steve Kerr answered that the other day.
There's very few players in the league who are not talked about in trade discussions. Steph Curry is not being discussed in trade talks. Everybody else is, if you went down the list of NBA teams, the Lakers probably not talking to anybody about LeBron. Everybody's got maybe one or two guys who they're off the table. So the vast majority of the NBA, the players are constantly, going to be discussed in trade talks because everyone's trying to do the same thing, which is improve their team.
So, part of his answer there is to basically say players learn to not be offended when it comes to being involved in trade talks. Did that ever get to you? Did you hate July?
No, I was never good enough to be traded. And I was never in a rumor. I was never. You got to be good to get traded. Somebody got to want you. No, I never was in any trade discussion ever that I knew of.
You never even heard of a rumor?
Nope. JT and I used to start trade rumors, and if we got them into the paper, it was a win. And we would talk within earshot of the reporters and see if we get rumors into the paper.
And it works sometimes?
Talked to my agent today, and he said. And we would watch them all kind of like lean in, like John Shea and everybody, and they would kind of lean in, and then they'd be like, "Dude, the rumor got in the paper." Yeah,
sometimes it would get in the paper.
Yeah, we would start them.
Weren't you like when you were a rookie? Didn't you finish in the top 5 of the Rookie of the Year vote?
Yes, 4th.
So what do you mean you weren't good enough to be traded?
Well,
what are you talking about?
You got to be good to get traded.
Let's go live to the director of sports at 95.7 The Game, Lucas Alexander, who has this update on the Utah Jazz situation and roster. Hello, Lucas.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks so much. First time, long time. Actually, not my first time. I'm chiming in a lot. FP was a little concerned about what the Jazz have and who they would want between a guard and Brandin Podziemski and a wing like Jonathan Kuminga. They have Keontae George, second-year point guard, who's
and Colin Sexton.
They have Colin Sexton, but I don't think he means much to the future of their franchise. They also did draft Isaiah Collier with their first-round pick, right around 10, I believe. So those two guards seem to be the future for them, but you could put Podziemski with pretty much anybody. They have Lauri as their main wing, but they don't have. They also drafted Cody Williams, young first-year player out of Colorado. He's a wing. And they drafted Kyle Filipowski, the guy who stole draft night with, the whole brainwashing girlfriend story. But none of these guys are like Jonathan Kuminga.
Fill the listeners in the fill-in host on that one for a second.
The Filipowski.
Long story. Don't remember every single detail. Actually, I pretty much do.
Yes, you do. It's what you do all day. You sit there on TMZ.com and you read this stuff.
Yeah, that's me.
I can confirm. That's what he does.
Kyle Filipowski was a great college basketball player at Duke, and he was coming into this last season. He was projected as a top 10 pick coming into the draft. He fell through the first round, so the story after the first round that was reported on was because of character issues. Teams passed on him because of character issues, and those character issues surfaced. What those issues was he doesn't have a relationship with his family, and he doesn't talk to his brothers or parents, and it turns out that the reason for that is because he has a girlfriend who is much older, and in your 20s.
I saw this.
I think she's now his fiancée, right?
That's breaking news.
She's like 84, right?
Well, no, I'm looking.
She's a lot older.
I'm looking at all. I'm looking at Filipowski on the internet right now, and it keeps referring to to his fiancée.
Okay.
I saw this
Good for them.
Lucas, I saw this. I just didn't know who we were talking about. I saw this. And then they backed off because his girlfriend's older?
Well,
that's dumb.
They backed off. Team in the report is that teams got scared that he's getting bad advice. He had the only person in his corner giving him advice is this now fiance who apparently told him was in like as he was graduating from high school, told him to stop talking to his parents and the rest of his family, and then convinced him to convert to Mormonism. That's how you say that. To become a Mormon. And
What's going on here? Mormon.
It's got to be a weekly segment, dude. Like Gossip with Lucas.
Then in the final twist of fate, which is just perfect, as a now Mormon, he gets to go play professional basketball in Salt Lake City,
Utah. Yeah.
He's going home.
Yeah.
And by the way, all guests on 95.7 The Game appear on the River Islands guest line. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands?
Thank you for that. Also,
River Islands in Lathrop, producer Lucas Alexander today booked himself for $452.
So this cougar took this kid to prom and then ruined his whole life, is what you're saying.
That's that. But let me go ahead and try and land this plane here.
NBA star. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think they could use either Brandin Podziemski or Jonathan Kuminga.
Did you just call him Podziemski?
Podziemski.
Add that to the thingamabob. Add that to Lucas called him Podziemski.
That's why you guys say pods.
Yeah, there you go. Again, they're assets.
Anyways, thanks for having me.
All right, it was great having you on.
Good call.
Thanks for fitting us in.